Well, I wonder who that could be this winter's day. Allow me to open the door. Oh my god, it's my good friend Theodore.
Hello, Fred. I was just walking outside, and I happened to come across your house, and I thought I wonder what Fred is doing. And
Well, welcome to my humble abode. How pleasant it is to see you.
Oh, thanks. It's good to see you, too. I love what you've done with the place. The rug on the wall on the rug. That's a good touch.
I have walls. I bought 4 of them.
You do. No roof, though, which is weird.
Well, I was planning on buying an extra wall for the roof, but then I used it for the floor.
That's good.
So,
I
don't want to walk around on asphalt and dirt.
No. Anyway, so yeah, I was just walking by. I smelled some sweet pie in the windowsill.
No. I must ask you to stay. Oh God, please stay.
No, I'm not going out there.
Sit down by my chair and my sofa. And then, what do you want? Anything to drink? Do you want a cup of coffee or some brandy or some coffee again?
Well, I'll have you know that I'm only 18, and you offering me brandy is a breach of the law. So I will just take the tea, and that's
well. Considering that we are talking over Skype, you're going to have to do it yourself.
Okay. Well, all right. We are in your house with 2 laptops talking over Skype.
In 2 different continents, we're basically doing a physical experiment. We're sitting in the same house in 2 different continents. It's like Schrodinger's cat, but different.
Right. We are in states. We are either alive or dead or in between.
We're either American or European.
That's right. There's no labels in these rooms.
It's just love. That's all it is. Love. We love each other and we love you.
We do love you, the viewers. We got some very nice comments when I was last on, and I just want to say to all the people who left nice comments, thank you. Appreciate it.
They were surprised by how good and contributive you were.
Yeah.
How much you could add to the conversation.
Well, I mean, they only know of you talking to yourself, so I guess anyone adding to the conversation is new to them. So.
Well, I'm not even sure if you really are there, or this is just me talking to myself. And then I uploaded a very long episode of me talking to myself. I imagined that I was talking to you, but
or
secretly
this is like a looper scenario where I'm you in the future, and like you're talking to yourself.
You in my future?
I could
really?
Be, yeah.
Do you think that you appear older than me?
Well, what I did is I took anti-aging pills and I went back in time, and here I am.
If anything, you are Gordon Levitt and I am Bruce Willis.
I guess that would make more sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, because I don't have any knowledge of taking future pills, so if anyone would have that, it would be you, I guess.
But it's as I said, we are in 2 different continents. We're in 2 different time zones, so we've set this up here in order to have some conversation. But I've had my entire day is towards the evening now where I am, and you've just woken up a few hours ago.
2 hours ago, I woke up. Yeah. I'm actually at school.
That's a good idea for podcast. Possibly you get 2 people from different time zones, and then you talk with one person. What are you going to do today? And then you talk to the other person. And what did you do?
What they've done today?
So what are you going to do today? What are your plans?
My plans for today. Well, here's the thing: is I got back to school because I'm moving my dorm room. And so I have to go back 2 days early, and there's none of the dining halls on our campus are open. So I'm eating raisins and Ritz crackers. I have literally nothing to eat. And the situation is getting pretty dire. So today I'm going to try and survive by eating a combination of raisins, crackers, and instant sort of coffee milk substitute.
So it must have been quite hard on you when I offered to make you a cup of coffee or brandy or things like that, because you don't have anything.
I have
really
nothing. I was so excited.
So I was like, teasing you.
Finally,
I was mocking
sustenance. You. I'm literally dying. Like, I can feel the black, cold hand of death on my shoulder.
Are you a skinny man?
Oh yeah, I'm very skinny.
So you don't have any sort of fat reserves on your body?
Absolutely not.
To use.
I don't know where it all goes.
What you need to do is that what skinny people need to do when they're starving, as I said, you don't have any fat reserves, but that's your advantage because you are quick and fast, and you can hunt down other people who are fat and have fat reserves, and you can take them down, and then you can cook them and eat them. That's cannibalism, but you know.
You know what? I've got a window facing the courtyard, and whenever I see a fat person walk by, I can't help but, you know, get that primal hunger, that urge. I just, you know, and I hate to say it, but I would love to eat a fat person right now.
I think it would be less like a sort of a big lion or tiger jumping at an animal, and more like a weasel or that type of, you know, weasels, they hunt rabbits.
Yeah, like ferrets or something.
A ferret, not weasels, yes, but that type of animal jump at rabbits and hares and eat them, and I would imagine that's sort of what you would like if you.
What I'll do is, like a spider, I'll like bury myself under the ground and have like a little false like.
Would you rather be a spider than a ferret?
I think spider because it's more true to what I look like. I'm very spindly.
Do you have more than one limb? Well, do you have more than 4 limbs?
I have extra limbs, but they're vestigial, and they look like a little baby has been absorbed into me, and I cannot use them to scale walls and save New York City.
So you are a useless spider, in fact.
Yeah, but what I'm gonna do is I'll dig a hole, put like a thatched sort of covering over it, and when someone walks by, I'll just jump out, grab their leg, and drag them in my hole.
So that's your plan for today?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Oh, good. Well, I've already had my day, and I was.
Yeah, Fred. What have you done?
I was out on adventure in this Stockholm city of Stockholm. I had presumably not a homeless man because he looked quite clean, but some kind of alcoholic type. He was carrying a plastic bag, and he came up to me and asked me if I was a writer, and said that I looked very clever. And then he asked me about yin and yang, and asked me, do I understand yin and yang? And I said, yes, I think I do. And he was so impressed with me and said, "Oh, you must be a very smart man." And from that point on, I think my day was made. I was very happy. I got a compliment from an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And then I fell over on the ice, and slipped on the ice.
Fred.
And well, it's cold outside.
That's true. That's true.
It was minus 10 degrees Celsius this morning.
Jesus.
That I don't know. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit.
I don't know. I just imagine it's like Hoth over there. Like you had to cut open a camel or something and use that as a coat.
Camel?
Yeah. So I don't know. A tauntaun, is that what they're called in Star Wars?
A moose or an elk.
Yeah, a moose. Everyone in Sweden in the winter just looks like everyone is an animal. They just skin animals and wear their skin. That's what I surmise.
Apparently minus 10 degrees Celsius is 14 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, that's bad, but that's not like too bad. It's about It's about like it's probably around 0 degrees C here. But we've had it up to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit with wind chill. It's been awful. We're talking about the weather like too old. You invite me to your house and we talk about the weather. What is this?
Well, that's what we do in Northern Europe. Wherever you go in Northern Europe, you have people talking about the weather because they can't talk about anything else that's emotional.
Right.
So if you go to Britain or you go to Scandinavia, or I imagine Netherlands or Northern Germany, that's all people talk about. Oh, the weather is quite nice today. Well, the weather was nice last week. But it was snowing last week. Well, it wasn't quite as cold last week. Oh, that's nice. Do you want some coffee?
When people say the weather's nice today, are they looking for someone to agree with them? Or are they actually like open to the idea that someone may be like, actually, it's not nice today, and here's why?
No, it's a very quiet, desperate cry out for God. It's basically you want God to agree with you. You want God to come down from the clouds and agree with you. Yes, I made sure the weather is nice today. Thank you. That's all it is. It's quiet desperation, existential angst that's manifested itself through the very mundane.
You have read a lot into the weather question.
I mean, yes.
I mean,
well, I mean, Scandinavians are kind of obsessed about the weather as well because because Scandinavia is so far up north. It means that we have and the winter and the summer it has enormous difference in the sunshine. Like in the winter, now it's not too bad, but certainly around December, you get about the sun rises about 9-10 o'clock in the morning and sets around 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then in the summer the sun rises about 3 o'clock in the morning and then sets about midnight. So it's like enormous difference in the way the sun rises and sets. So, you know, for Swedes it matters a lot about these sort of things, and we complain a lot about it. Oh, it's so dark. Oh, it's so bright.
I think in the future all Swedish people, pretty much everyone in Europe, is going to become like a mole person. And
not Italians.
Maybe
they're
not.
going to stay like Italians, eating
they're all going to
sausage
turn
and
into
having
Cake
fun.
Boss. I've been watching a lot of Cake Boss recently.
I've seen that on Netflix. I don't watch that type of thing though.
It's you're not missing anything. You're just missing a lot of novelty cake making, which there's literally nothing else to watch here. I've been holed up in my room all day, so I haven't been able to experience any weather, but I did go to Florida over my Christmas vacation, and the weather there was great. So great, in fact, that I caught an octopus. I went fishing and caught an octopus.
Oh, with a hook or with your hand? Or with a spear? Or trident?
It was actually a lasso. I used a lasso and I caught an octopus.
I don't believe that. It would be more believable if you said trident, and I would be more impressed as well.
I don't have the physique to carry a trident. I'd look silly. It's like, you know, who's that trident holding a smaller trident?
You'd look like Neptune's sort of odd nephew.
I'd look like Nephew's like metrosexual, you know, son who he doesn't talk to. It's like, I'm just trying to fit in. Dad doesn't get it.
I think that the one god I'm trying to emulate, I think, is Bacchus. I'm trying to be a bit like Bacchus, prodigy.
God of wine.
His son.
Merrymaking.
Yes.
That's a good god to emulate. I haven't thought of... who's the one with the turtle harp?
Actually, Bacchus, I'm not sure if Bacchus has a son, but the Greek version of Bacchus, Dionysus, has a son called Comus. I could be like him. He's got a cross dress and he's perpetually drunk.
Wow. They must have been like scraping the bottom of the barrel of gods when they made him. That's a very specific god to have.
He's the god of sort of drunken, disorderly behavior. Basically, It's the god of parties gone wrong, which I love. I love Greek mythology for that reason. It has some really insane stuff.
Yeah, the Greeks were crazy. I mean, they had like snake women and bull men. It was nuts back in Greek times. I was actually obsessed with Greek history for a very long time, and I was convinced that all of the Greek like monsters were real. And
oh, you idiot!
I know, but
you poor little idiot.
My parents reinforced the idea, and they actually, when I was little, they would weave their own mythology, and they would tell me that there is a professor working on a cure to live forever, so don't worry about dying. And they told me that.
And then they built a massive mound in the back of your garden and gave you a rock. And then said, you're going to be Sisyphus and roll this rock up, and then it's going to roll down.
They bound my ankles. And
then you're going to live for an eternity. That's what's their trick. That we're going to basically trap you in an existential trap.
It did not work though, because I'm not immortal.
Well, that was the point. That's why you talked about the scientist.
Oh.
That we're going to. They had read a lot of Camus, and then they figured that they should emulate that.
Well,
we have made references to Greek mythology and Camus within 15 minutes.
I think
of this recording.
We're doing good. We can check that one off the list of things we have to talk about. Just
there
we go.
Well, I also, I was going to, there's no point really being too strict about questions, this and that. It's more easy to just take it as it comes. But I was thinking I have some questions that I might bring up that might be fun. What was the last film you saw?
Oh, let me think. It was Disney's Frozen, the 3D animated film. I went and saw it with a bunch of my friends. Everyone in the theater was like 12 to 6. And then there were a bunch of like 18-year-olds in the back, like absolutely loving every minute of it.
Did you go in disguise as a 12-year-old?
I did like I wouldn't say I did. I like went on my knees and put my shoes on my kneecaps, and I did that.
And then people thought you were a hobbit, and he said, "Oh fuck, we watched the wrong film."
Yeah, and they thought I was cosplaying as a hobbit, and I got like kicked over a couple times. But you know what? That's the price I gotta pay for being an idiot. So
did you like that film?
That film was pretty great, gotta say. I don't know. I didn't like. I'm not gonna like revel about it as much as people have. It was a good movie, but I don't think it like. It didn't like break any, like, you know. It didn't make me really think about the princess heroine sort of ideals. Like it was like it was a story about two sisters arguing, you know, and it was nice and the music was good and the snowman was funny. But that's it.
I suppose you're an animator, so you have an excuse to watch animated films.
Yeah, but
isn't that film like inspired by? What I can see from it is that it looks like it's based on. Is it based on something written by Hans Christian Andersen?
I don't know, but I know that it is
because it looks very Scandinavian-ish.
Yeah, it is based. I mean, in that sort of like Netherlandsy area of Scandinavia, Norway.
Netherlands.
That sort of.
Netherlands is not Scandinavia, you idiot.
It's around there.
It's based on Hans Christian Andersen stuff. It's based on the Snow Queen. Yeah. So yes, interesting. I'm not going to watch it. But it is interesting nevertheless.
I mean, there were only like 2 really good songs. I gotta say, and I like the 2D animated films Disney does way more than the 3D animated films.
But they haven't done any
I know,
of that
they're
in
stopping
a very long time. I mean, that's the thing about it. I'm ready for 2D animation to make a comeback, but it doesn't seem it's not going to happen from one of the biggest studios because they figured out that the way to be successful now is using this computer generated.
Yeah, I also think like
stuff.
People want their movies in 3D now, and like so many people are just not going to the movies anymore because they can steal movies from the internet.
How dare you claim such a thing?
I know, blasphemy. We would never do such a thing to steal from the internet, but people do that, so they have to introduce more gimmicks. Like this, I was in the movie theater watching it, and you could sit in a section where the chairs would move in accordance to what was going on in the film, like to engross you into the experience, and it just seemed annoying. Like that would just throw me out of the film if every time someone fell down, the chair like shook.
Well, the film, I was planning on watching a film today, but I decided against it because it's 3 hours long, and I wanted to see The Wolf of Wall Street.
No, yeah.
And it would be amazing if that film had vibrating chairs. Because
just like
I believe that film has gay orgies.
Oh yeah.
So you could have a lot of fun sitting there vibrating.
The vibrating chairs during the gay orgy section. That would be, and it just like, you know, puffs coke into your eyes every time they do that.
But I believe that film is supposed to be really good.
It is really good. I saw that film.
Yeah, do you like Martin Scorsese?
I'm not like too familiar with his work. This would probably be his like debut to me, like my introduction to Scorsese. But I actually
this is Scorsese's debut film when he's like in his 70s.
Yeah, but apparently like people like him in Hollywood, and I think I really like the movie.
In Hollywood, I think people. I mean, of all sort of his contemporaries, he's the one guy who haven't really made a bad film. Like if you go like Francis Ford Coppola or George Lucas, of course, they've made bad films, whereas Martin Scorsese sort of perpetually makes good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff or like lesser known good stuff. Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, he started off like doing Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, Raging Bull, and then he's made Gangs of New York. He made Shutter Island.
Oh yeah, I did not like Shutter Island though. I like knew the twist at the end from the very beginning. I won't spoil it, but it's so obvious.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look, I think the film is good, but the twist ending doesn't really interest me. But the otherwise is good.
The green screen was terrible in the movie. when they're like driving in that car. Yeah, if you look at it, it just looks like sitting in a soundstage and someone's like wiggling the chairs under them, and you can see like the pixelation around them. It's very badly, like, poorly done.
Well, what I find, well, it might be green screen, sure, but what I find interesting is that there are certain films and certain things you watch where it's so you can guarantee that must be green screen because it looks so artificial, and then you see sort of behind the scenes footage and you realize that it's not green screen. It just happens to be the circumstances that day. It looks so beautiful and perfect that. I mean, it happened in. I remember it happened in Lost a few times.
Yeah.
The TV series when it went, because they filmed it in Hawaii, and of course Hawaii is, like quite a good-looking place, and sometimes you would see that and sort of have that image of the blue sea and the sun, and it looks so fucking fake.
Yeah.
And I imagine. So I imagine what the director must have thought. Oh no, it looks too beautiful today. People are going to think this is fake.
Damn it! Damn you!
It's like if there was a woman who was, had flawless skin, had no kind of imperfections at all, she was the perfect weight and everything, she would be so frightened of ever doing sort of model shoots, because she would be convinced that no one would believe that she was genuinely beautiful.
Yeah, but I think
people would just say, "Oh, Photoshop."
I think that, like, that woman would be like invited onto talk shows and would become a world celebrity because she was like so drop dead gorgeous. I think a lot of attractive people, and sometimes not attractive people, are famous because of their looks. I think Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, I like that Elephant Man guy. I mean, he had nothing to bring other side than his just
He's a hot guy.
shallow appearance.
People were, oof, that Elephant Man. What was I saying? Actually, I went to see the new Hobbit film with my mother. And she thought...
Me too.
with my mom?
With your mother.
Oh.
Yes. She was a very lovely lady.
Oh, thank you. But what... okay.
She looked quite frighteningly like you.
Well, it does make sense that, she would, because...
No, I watched it with my mother on New Year's Eve.
And my mom thought that, there are a lot of... I don't think this is spoiling anything for me to say. There are a lot of dragon crashing through things sort of sequences. And my mother thought they did all of that on a miniature model with, like, C4 placed around it. And then, like,
that's
animated
adorable.
the dragon. I know, it was very sweet of how wrong she was. I found it very funny.
Well, that film was better than the first one. But it sort of ended on a bit of an annoying cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I kind of expect those films to not end on cliffhangers. I kind of expect them to sort of stand on their own a bit more.
Yeah.
But it was better than the first one.
It's very obviously a film that they're going to be, like, playing in theaters a month before the next film comes out, because you can transition so easily from the last scene to probably the scene of the new movie.
Well, I noticed that about the rental place that I have sort of nearby, is that the most rented film right now is the first Hobbit film, because the second one is in the cinema, so they want to watch it again.
Yeah. I didn't like the first Hobbit film too much. I gotta say, it was all right, but
well, I mean, I think once you get used to the fact that it has a bit of a different tone than the Lord of the Rings film. But Lord of the Rings films feels like sort of big epics, whereas the Hobbit films are slightly more sort of down to earth.
They're more like
fairy tale,
subtle. Yeah, they are very fairy tale like.
They are more so. I mean, they're more colorful as well. I mean, I've realized this because I haven't watched the old Lord of the Rings film for a while, but I really do seem to think that these Hobbit films are much more colorful than the Lord of the Rings films were.
And they definitely...
Because I remember the Lord of the Rings films as being quite greyish and brownish, not quite as...
Or like starkly black and things like that. And very, very harsh colors. I also feel like if you've ever listened to the book, or I listened to the audiobook, there's like singing and dancing in The Hobbit. There's like huge songs that...
That's a child's book. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So I'm not really that surprised if the tone is a bit different.
Did you watch it in the special 48 frames thing?
I didn't watch this or the other one in the special extra frames.
Did not watch the other one in the 48 frames, but this one I thought, you know what, I'll treat myself. I'm going to go to the IMAX, I'm going to watch this in 3D, and I'm going to watch this at 48 films the way that Peter Jackson wanted me to watch it. And I gotta say, it really does not look good in 48 frames. It looks so real. Like,
no, that's what I remember people saying. It looks like a soap opera.
Yeah, it just like, because you know, with film, you get that sort of, I wouldn't say grainy, but there is like a sort of barrier between the audience and the film. And in this one, I could like see every wrinkle. I could almost see the makeup on their faces. It just like sort of threw me out a little bit.
Yeah, that's the thing that people say when you watch it in higher frames. It starts looking fake because all the props and so much they seem less believable because you begin to see through it more. So I've consciously avoided seeing it in high frames.
Yeah, I would advise anyone watching, don't see it in high frame rate.
But that's the sort of thing that kind of annoys me. It kind of annoys me with Peter Jackson going on about 3D and higher frames because it's the typical thing. We're not going to get better films because it improves technically with gimmicks. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having it lower frames. It hasn't annoyed anyone before, and it doesn't.
This needs a higher frame rate. God damn it! Throw his mug against the wall.
If you look at some of the perhaps most beautiful films, if you take like a Kubrick film that most people recognize as well filmed, like 2001, if you've seen that.
Space Odyssey. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of the people would say one of the more beautiful films, most beautiful filmed. It has, everything, every shot is done perfectly. And would that film benefit from being in higher frames per second?
No, I don't think so. In fact, I think some of the allure is the age of it. I like it. Like when people say, "I'm going to telephone you tomorrow." So that was really funny. I like that.
Well, what matters is composition, the way the scenes are composed, and the way that it looks behind, the way the cinematographer and the director works together, the way lighting works together. That is the thing that matters the most. Not whether or not it's presented in higher frames per second or not.
Yeah, and like
it's just stupid gimmick done to distract people from the more important.
I'd have to say that the only part that I liked in the high frame rate was the dragon, because that was a composed element. That was something that they made, Yeah,
I imagine that might be the case. I imagine that might be the case with Gollum in the first one.
Yeah, that probably is true. Like all the CG bits were really did look very good, and that is partly because in the olden times the olden times as in 2001, when CG
back then,
it is actually
back when I was. Well, that was actually a long time ago. It was over 10 years ago. And I was about 10 then. Oh,
jeez. I don't know.
You were about
I don't
1.
want to say. Yeah, I was a fetus. I've rapidly aged. But because I watched all the Matrix movies like very recently, and the scene where Neo is like fighting all the Smiths, it just looks so shitty.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's a typical. But people knew that looked bad when it came out, didn't they? Because there is the gifs.
I don't know if people did. I think people really loved it. People thought it was like the next.
Because there's one gif which has Neo with a ring of Agent Smiths around him, and Neo is sort of running around in a circle, knocking them out. And there's gifs of that on the internet used as an example because it looks hilariously bad.
Yeah, and also like I heard all of the Matrix movies in like flash animations before I actually watched the Matrix. That that sort of thing. I hope we don't get sued for using that. That actual clip of the music.
Yeah, so the rendition was so good that the YouTube automated service
you're gonna have to
register
content
sound.
ID is like no, and
yeah,
I'd love to rescore the Matrix movie with my own music. I'd love to do that.
But it's one of those things that happens with special effects in films. Is that back in the day, in the proper old days, not 2001, like when they made King Kong, that era, if they were going to do a movie monster back then, they'd either do a stop motion in animation, they'd use some sort of marionette, or they'd put a guy in a suit. And that's, what they did with all the early Star Wars films.
Yeah. And that was... Really,
but what happened is that computer-generated CGI became big, and that took over all the special effects, but pretty much. And people sort of forget, people were so eager to just dismiss all the old techniques of being old-fashioned and archaic that they forgot that they can actually work quite well. And then you got something like Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
If you've seen
I've
that.
seen that.
And Hellboy 2 as well. I mean, Del Toro's stuff, which doesn't use really that many. You know, it uses some computer-generated stuff, but it all the outfits and so on.
They're very practical.
Yes, it's using just guys in different suits. It has Doug Jones, I believe he's called.
Oh yeah, isn't he the guy that's like been in everything, but no one really knows his face?
And then they disguise him, and it looks so much better than most of the computer-generated stuff.
I'm so angry that he wasn't able to do his Call of Cthulhu movie. I think that would have been so good.
He was supposed to do one called one based on H.P. Lovecraft.
The Mountains of Madness, right?
Yes, the Mountain of Madness.
Yeah, that was supposed to like tie in with this grand Cthulhu mythos. I don't know why I find it so interesting, the Cthulhu mythos, but maybe because it's just like a mix of Greek mythology and sci-fi.
I think because it's actually frightening in a way that you not always the fact that the basis for Lovecraft horror is the fact that humans are insignificant.
Yeah, well,
and it's not necessarily that Cthulhu's other creatures in H.P. Lovecraft are evil. It's just that they are so much bigger than us. We are like insects to them.
Yeah,
and that's sort of what's frightening is the sort of indifference rather than the menacing cruelty of. But I think a
lot of H.P. Lovecraft's monsters were like he explained them he described them in such a way where you sort of have to like make your own monster in your brain, because he was like, and this monster was so scary that if you looked at it you'd totally freak out because it was like was so gross.
But that's the point also, is they like the monsters are like beyond human comprehension as well.
Yeah, but is that good or is that poor writing on H.P. Lovecraft part that it's like
no, I think that's good. I mean that's the problem with a lot of horror stuff, is that it becomes to. That's the problem with a lot of horror games. I don't play really any horror games at all.
No, I hate them.
But when you have the monsters come up to you and show themselves straight up and sort of do a dance for you, it becomes less frightening because you know exactly what they look like.
The less you see of it, the more I think more scary it is. But I think that worked. Yeah. That didn't work for Cloverfield because I watched some of that.
I didn't watch that.
It wasn't very scary, and they only like showed 2 seconds of the monster.
I didn't watch that because I didn't want to be sick.
Yeah, it was pretty sickening. And they're gonna make it 2 apparently. Oh, you know what? That would be a great movie to watch in the chair. You would get so many bruises.
You could basically be the camera.
Yeah.
And you could feel the camera moving around as if you are the camera.
Your like chair could be suspended on a giant like metal tentacle that like shook and shake. Like when, oh my god, that would be the best thing. I'd love to see that.
Okay, hello there ladies and gentlemen. This is a bit of extra Q&A goodness added after I talked with Theo the first time. Something went wrong with the save file, so we decided to sit down and have a bit of extra chat. I invited Theodore back to my house, and he's now sitting here, dressed inappropriately, I would say.
Oh, well, that is your definition of appropriately. I find a bathrobe and 2 combat boots very appropriate.
Well, I don't think the combat boots are any wrong. I mean, I do, as I mentioned, I mean, my house doesn't have any kind of roof, so there's all snow over the ground. It's just that I believe that you're very cold in that bathrobe.
I'm freezing. I'm literally freezing. But that is the cost I have to pay for looking so good all the time, Fred. I'm not afraid to make these sacrifices. What?
You look blue.
Well, yeah, but that's kind of like the mysterious. Like, have you ever seen X-Men? Like the mysterious blue girl? That's kind of like the look that I'm going for.
She has the advantage. She can transform into anything she wants to take any kind of shape. Well, any human shape. And you can't do that. But if you could do that, then I would be quite happy to have you in my house, because then we could have real fun.
We
but
could.
as it is now you're just sort of cold and freezing. So
imagine the charade game we could play if I could do that.
But that's the interesting part about the X-Men is what if you're a mutant and your powers are just looks? You don't have any kind of extra powers, it's just a disability. Like, that's the thing I don't understand about the X-Men, because they're supposed to be mutated, but all of them happens to have superpowers attached with their mutation, and there ought to be quite a few X-Men, so I just happen to have an extra leg or something like that. It's
They're
not
like
a superpower. They can't
the
run
Z-Men?
faster because of it.
Yeah, they just like have 12 extra toes, or like can't pronounce the word, sandwich properly.
I mean, I say this, and then I'm sure there's going to be some comic book fan in the comment section going, "Well, Fred,
Excuse me, Fred, I think you'll find
yeah,
if you turn to page 12 of X-Men 42. Oh,
Yeah, that's what they'll say.
Then there's the introduction of the Qmen, a collection of disabled X-Men.
The disabled X-Men. How
Yes.
sad. Oh wait, no. Professor X is a disabled X-Men by definition.
Yeah, I suppose he is. So, I mean, when we think about it now, Marvel, you have done a good job in making society accept disabled people more
Yes.
easily.
And now they're trying to like sort of do a sort of like blanket of minorities and like gender identities to make sure everyone is represented.
Well, people always talked about the X-Men being sort of, what's it called, an allegory for homosexuality and the Pride movement.
What?
Yeah, I think that's well, not necessarily. Well, later on perhaps Pride, but earlier on the sort of equal rights, the black people in the 60s in America sort of rising up a bit more.
Oh yeah,
Because
I get
that's
that.
where it comes from. So there's a lot of theories about that.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, in that scene in X-Men 2 when Professor X and Magneto like kissed, and it was like really romantic.
Well, it's like Spider-Man is an allegory for a young man discovering his sexuality, going around spraying a bunch of white stuff everywhere.
Oh my god, you're blowing my mind with this. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So what would Batman be? Just more of that?
Batman is just an example of post-traumatic stress disorder gone wrong. Well, I suppose all post-traumatic stress disorder goes wrong. But I mean, when you think about
Yeah.
Batman, I mean, they tried to make this sort of cool, realistic Batman, Christopher Nolan's films, but there's no way they can make Batman a pleasant character. I mean,
Batman is always super camp.
It's camp, but when they try to make it serious, you just think, well, this guy needs a therapist. I mean, he's like in his 40s or whatever, and he hasn't gotten over his parents' death when he was, I suppose, 13, something like that. I mean, sure, you don't need to come over your parents' death. You can still treat it as a traumatic event. But his response to go out and not kill, but go out and get all these criminals.
Mm-hmm. I actually read something.
It's kind of tragic when you try to make the films as serious as possible, because then you just go, well, I mean, this is not right.
Well, if you think about it, Batman, what he does is he's this wealthy businessman who goes down and like beats street level punks who have no money, and like,
Well, there's a lot of
like,
that in superhero books. I mean, there's a lot of that. The rich guy beating down the poor guys. I mean, have you read Watchmen?
Oh yeah, I love Watchmen.
Yeah, Watchmen. I mean, I always liked it when superhero comic book geeks talk about Watchmen, because Watchmen is like a satire of the whole thing. And what you have there is you have someone like Rorschach, who is just a parody of Batman. This idea of someone what the sort of Batman figure would be in sort of real life, just this pathetic figure who goes around talking about the world is ending and go out beating up enemies and have terrible hygiene. And then
Rorschach's monologues were painfully Batman-y at times.
And then he has the Ozymandias, who is the sort of Aryan superhero ideal, the sort of Superman, the blonde, strong guy
perfect.
who decides to sacrifice the whole population just and justifies it. I mean, has
That was actually really good. Like, I did not expect that ending, and I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, because you should read the book. It's fantastic.
You shouldn't have watched the film, really. I mean, the film is good, but it sort of misses the point. The point is that this is a bunch of loonies. This is a bunch of crazy people in this...
Yeah, from a bygone era.
Dressed up as superheroes beating each other up. It's not supposed to be, superhero action. And Zack Snyder, of course, has to make everything slow motion and epic. And it kind of
Alan
misses
Moore
the point.
said he hated the film. He said he really didn't like the film adaptation at all.
I'm not sure if I've watched the film, but there's been sort of terrible Alan Moore adaptations. I mean,
he's always angry.
I mean, I remember when I first watched V for Vendetta, and V for Vendetta, of course, based on an Alan Moore book. I remember when I first watched that film, I really liked it, up until I read the book and realized, oh my god, they cut out a lot of stuff. The book is so much more interesting.
Oh yeah? Oh wow, I should pick that up.
Well, the book is interesting because in the film, the guy with the mask, he's just a freedom hero. He's just, that stereotypical character and has inspirational words and so on. In the books, he is more creepy. And he kind of does a bigger job of, well, I mean, I don't want to sound too pretentious, but the book is sort of more about anarchy and fascism rather than the film, which is just about... which
this
is more
crazy,
fan
quirky,
service in a way.
Mysterious man, sort of like jumping around and beating people up.
Yeah,
but the action scenes in there are really cool.
Yeah, I mean that's sure. But that's the problem with comic books. That's the thing I never understood, why superheroes are so big in comic books. Because how do you really do action in comic books? It's a very slow medium. So that's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a digression.
But
the thing that we recorded last time that we couldn't really use was Theodore had some examples, some topics that had happened to him and he wanted to talk about. And there's two things he talked about that might be interesting to go through again. One was the sleep paralysis.
Do you want me to go just talk now?
Yeah, I mean... It's not the sort of impromptu type conversation that we're supposed to have a podcast.
And here's Theo. He's going to talk about sleep paralysis.
But considering that we already went through this, so you might as well just go at it straight on.
All right, so here I go. So basically, I, over the summer, went to England to visit some family, and I met up with Kieran, and I stayed with the Hat Films guys for a night, which was great and a lot of fun. But in doing
you didn't mention that. You just jumped to the sleep paralysis. You cut out the juicy bit.
Yeah.
You're terrible at telling anecdotes.
I know. I should have kept this in. Well, it's good that we re-recorded this now.
Yeah.
So, hung out with Kieran in real life, which was cool. Went to Hat Films' house and sort of chilled out there, sitting on their couch very awkwardly for a little while. But it was very stressful because... they were in Bristol, where I was living in London at the time, and I had to schedule trains and taxi cabs and make dates and stuff. And I hate traveling as far as making times and getting tickets goes. It's just so stressful. So I was absolutely stressed out of my mind. I was probably on about 2 hours of sleep, and I was just lying in their pull-out sofa bed, just trying to get to sleep. And when I did manage to finally nod off and get to sleep, after about an hour I was shook awoke, and I was freezing cold all over, and I couldn't move an inch of my body. It was really surreal, and I was still sort of half sleeping, so I was what is going on? And then I feel something sort of on my back, and I sleep shirtless, I'm not afraid to say. So,
ladies,
just if you want pictures or anything, I can prove it. So I'm not trying to be funny. So I was just sleeping or half sleeping, and I feel these two sort of fingers on my back, but they don't feel like squishy flesh fingers. They feel like bony dead fingers, scraping down my back. And then I feel something grab my shoulder, and it felt like cold porcelain. It felt like something hard and really freezing and sort of sharp, the fingers, and I felt this head or something move up to my ear, and it just like whispered. It whispered sort of a lot of things, but the main thing I remember is it said things like, you know, let go and shit like that, and it was really, really freaky. Now, being the skeptic I was very, and I have a lot of lucid dreams because I can't help but question, you know, the ridiculousness of situations. I didn't like have a breakdown or anything because I knew this was sleep paralysis, but it was really, really surreal, and it actually makes a lot of sense to me why people like report stories like UFOs or Slendermans at their bed. It was just, it was never, it's...
But that's absolutely right. I mean, it is, that's the explanation that, as a skeptic, because I'm also a skeptic, that's the sort of explanation you use for any kind of supernatural claim with UFOs and similar. But in your case, I can see two explanations. Either it was just sort of simple sleep paralysis brought on by stress and fatigue, or you have schizophrenia. And I quite like,
Really?
I quite like if you have schizophrenia or some other kind of psychosis, because then we could do a podcast called Neurosis and Psychosis, which would be hilarious. And I'd be neurosis and you could be psychosis.
Yeah, oh my god, two sociopaths with psychosis and neurosis just bantering on about the crazy things they see or think every day.
Well, I mean, we could. I mean, obviously, now I'm going to be quite tedious and sort of scold you for using the word sociopath where it doesn't belong. But we could invite a psychopath. He probably would end up killing us. But that could be exciting.
We don't have to invite him over to the house that we're sitting in right now on the floor.
I mean, he'd probably break in and he'd become obsessed with us and then break in and murder us.
That's such a good idea. What we should do is we should rent out an apartment in a
We should do a snuff podcast. Yeah,
that's a novel idea. But no, what we should do is we should like go to the bad part of town, rent out an apartment, leave the door open, and then just wait and see what characters come in. And when they come in, we can just be like, "Do you want to record a podcast? You know, or were you looking to rob the place?"
Yeah. I think the problem with that is that I don't think many people would actually go in. If most people see an open door and two people standing inside holding microphones and patting their laps, they would probably say, we don't really want to take part of that.
What we would do is we would like have a Ming vase in the doorway, so they'd be like, "Oh, that looks expensive." And when they come in, we have like some sort of net overhead, and we net them. And then we drag him to the den where we're sitting in our robes and combat boots, and we just sort of talk to him for an hour or so.
I don't think I would have combat boots. I actually did buy a pair of boots recently, and it's sort of Chelsea boots. And they are much more stylish. I would be wearing those. And instead of a robe, I think I would wear one of those silk jackets.
Like the kimono?
More like a smoking jacket, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you were wearing a kimono, that would be great, though. I think they'd love that.
I'm not sure how. I mean, I'm quite a big guy. I mean, I have a big chest and big shoulders and stuff. I'm not sure if I would look good in kimono, because kimono should be for skinny people, I feel.
I can't wear a robe and a kimono. That would just look silly.
Well, you don't need to wear anything at all.
Oh.
Have you thought about that? I can wear everything. And then you can just sit beside naked in combat boots.
A pile of clothes and a just naked, skinny teenager.
I mean, the good thing is that we'd always have something to talk about for the podcast.
Yeah, God.
All these people would ask, you know, what's going on here?
Where am I?
Why is that boy naked?
What whimsical world have you just like whisked me into? I just wanted the vase. And it's like, well, you get something better, guy. You get a podcast. You're going to be on a podcast now.
But what's the worst nightmare you've ever had? I mean, I'm not sure if you can qualify sleep paralysis as a nightmare or not. But I mean, other than that,
let's see, a nightmare. I had one that was really freaky, where it's not like funny or anything. It was just like it felt very real, and it was about traveling. I was just on a plane, and like the plane started to shake, and it went like, you know, it started nose diving down, and just like I was pretty calm throughout, but everyone else was freaking out, which like made me freak out. And then it was one of those dreams where like you wake up and you like jump up from your bed and you're like, oh god.
I mean,
what about you?
I think there's this one nightmare that I had as a kid that I sometimes like to mention, because it sounds silly as an adult, but it involved me being bitten by a giant squirrel, which was at the time a nightmare because I woke up all sweaty. But what made it horrible is that I felt, as I held out as a bit my hand, I felt the teeth penetrate through my hand.
Oh,
so
God.
I felt a feeling in my hand and a sort of piercing feeling in my hand. So I woke up all sweaty. So that's why it was a genuine horrible nightmare, but it's a bit silly.
Yeah, I mean, are Swedish people, are they grown from nuts instead of like nurtured and fed in a womb? Maybe that has something to do with it. Oh, okay.
No, I think that you are. I think you perhaps misheard me a little bit, but that's okay. And then there also other nightmares I've had. I mean, this one nightmare I had more recently, I think last year, which was quite. It wasn't necessarily scary. It was just creepy. It sort of evolved. Have you seen? There's a clip online from Lars von Trier's Antichrist. It sort of became a bit of a meme, with a fox sort of eating itself and saying, "Chaos reigns."
What?
It became
that sounds metal as hell.
It's not really, but it became a bit of a meme. And when Elvis had that success with "What does the fox say?" there was a lot of people who did parodies of that. But you can find it on YouTube if you search for "Chaos Reigns." It's kind of a creepy clip. But I had a nightmare of a sort of young boy who looked, sort of young schoolboy who looked quite young. I mean, even younger than his age. And I sort of remember dreaming. I wasn't in the dream exactly, but I sort of remember him being in some kind of horrendous accident and becoming absolutely what's it called? Mangled and becoming for some reason I can't think of the word. But his entire body was broken and sort of crippled, and he ended up looking like some kind of weird human fox. And he kept sort of hiding in a blanket, and he was sort of infamously known in his neighborhood because he didn't have his parents anymore, and he was homeless, and no one could find him really, and he was very quick, and he would hide sort of by the dumpster. And I can just sort of have a very clear picture of what he kind of looked like as a sort of very beaten down little boy with that sort of strange posture, and that was disgusting.
Oh, creepy children are the worst. That's like the one like horror movie trope that actually like chills me to my core, is children burned, or like children mangled, or children like walking around creepily. I think I'm actually just afraid of children in real life. They're very scary.
Well, I mean, what I find creepy, and what was creepy to me about that dream, is that I find. Why can't I think of the right word? This is annoying.
Deformed?
Deformed. No, yeah, they figured. For fuck's sakes. But
That's alright, Fred.
I have a real problem with sort of body horror. If you're in a body horror, they're like The Fly.
Yeah, mutilation.
I remember watching The Fly 2, and the ending of that film, and I'm going to spoil The Fly 2, but if you are interested in The Fly 2, I mean, there are better films to watch. But at the end, the bad guy is, you know the setup of The Fly.
I think we talked about the first one at some point.
Well, perhaps. And the bad guy in the second Fly film, the bad guy is sort of pushed into the transporter with like a disfigured dog or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it comes out as this disgusting monster, just being crawling and having difficulties breathing, and is kept in a sort of pen with a bunch of hay and similar, like a sort of animal. And I remember watching that as a kid and thinking, well, I mean, the bad guy was, of course, the bad guy, but that is disgusting to even think about, being in that sort of position, having everyone look down upon you when you're just not even human anymore. So that's the sort of thing that disturbs me a lot.
Yeah, the inhumanness. I don't know.
I think it comes down to dehumanization. I also have difficulties. We talk a lot about my difficulties, but
yeah, I'm just like, it's okay, Fred.
But
is this just therapy?
But that's the thing. Like, when people talk about what sort of animal would you like to be, I wouldn't want to be an animal. I want to be a human.
No,
being an animal is awful. You get hunted, and you wouldn't fit in with any of the other animals. I mean, I don't fit in with humans as it is.
You've got to literally like fight to the death to mate.
Yeah,
which is awful. Yeah,
but I am made for. I'm not as I said. I don't even fit in with humans. But at least I'm better at being human than being as a deer or an eagle or whatever cliched animals people want to be.
Unless there's like a cool like Marianas Trench level animal that is like crazy interesting.
Colossal squid.
Yeah, or like it was hyper intelligent, like from that one movie.
Cthulhu.
Abyss.
You're thinking about Cthulhu.
Okay. Oh no! Not like a big like a sentient sort of realm of jellyfish people, like in Abyss. That would be cool. But yeah, no, being an animal is not fun. Having animal traits would be okay, or having animal features, maybe, like wings.
What kind of animal would you have wings, if you could pick one?
Claws would be really useful, but they would be, like, only good in fights, and, every other part of my life would be awful because of my claws.
I think that I would go with sort of the owl and have a head that can turn completely around.
Why? You don't need to find bowls.
No, because I would want to freak people out. I would want to stand in a sort of line with people behind me, behind my big back, and I would moan about having to wait in this line, and then I would turn my head around.
Can you believe this?
And say,
"Can you believe this
hello, how are you? I'm afraid you're behind me."
I'd actually like to unhinge my jaw when I eat, because I eat so slow. I just love to be like, ah.
I suppose everyone has a dream, and if your dream is to eat rodents alive, then that's fine.
Yeah, I certainly have the neck for it. I could be a snake.
Okay, let's ask a similar question. If you had to be an animal based on your appearance, what animal would be most like you?
It would probably be like one of those 6 foot tall birds that live in Florida that just sort of like walk around with their really long necks. An egret. I'd be an egret.
I don't know, but is that like a kookaburra, whatever they're called in Australia?
It would be like it's sort of like a flamenco but white.
Flamenco.
Yeah.
It's a flamingo.
It's like a flamingo, but like, oh, sorry.
You said flamenco.
It's like a flamingo, but like sort of less fabulous.
I wonder if that was an American pronunciation.
Maybe.
Americans do pronounce certain animals oddly. I notice a lot of Americans pronounce wolf as woof.
Woof? Oh, no. God forbid. I've never heard that.
But you're of the sort of higher class of Americans to pronounce properly.
Higher class of vocabulary of Americans, for sure.
The sort of European Americans.
Yeah, everyone loves hanging around those guys.
Fun. I mean, the easy answer for me would be a lion, because I have my blonde hair and blonde beard. But that kind of feels a bit lazy. I think that, well, it has to be some kind of bigger animal. It has to be some kind of big furry animal, so like bear.
I can kind of imagine you as one of those like penguins that live up north that have the funny hair.
Yeah, I mean the problem is that I think that you have to count in my size, the fact that I am over 6 foot. If I am any kind of animal, it would be something bigger, like possibly. Well, if an
orangutan, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, orangutan would go, or one of those giant lemurs in Madagascar.
Oh yeah,
that would be nice.
I didn't know they had giant lemurs.
Yeah, I mean, Madagascar has many lemurs, and there are some that are giant, like big primates. I mean, they are related to us. I mean, they are outside of the primate family. They are the closest relatives. But the bird, I also think that. I mean, I'm trying to think, why aren't there more bears really in existence? There are brown bears, there are black bears, polar bears, but they aren't really. They just have different, fur. They don't really have different shape in any way.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, polar bears look very much like dogs, if you look at their faces.
Yeah, I mean that's the same with seals as well. Seals
There was
are kind of like dogs of the sea.
Yeah, dogs are great. Seals are good.
But
I'd love to hug a seal.
But walruses are the horses of the sea. That's what.
Walruses are not horses.
How are they horses? That's what the name means. Is val meaning whale, and ros coming from an old word for horse. Or horse used to be ros, turn into horse.
I thought seahorses were the horses of the sea. That's what I assumed.
They're kind of small. You can't really ride a seahorse.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it'd never work. Too big. For sure.
I think this is enough though for this recording. Thank you, Theodore, for coming back and sitting down with me once more. So, what are you going to do now? Your day's just begun.
Oh yeah, wow. Whole day in front of me. I've got a list of things, but I think I'm gonna go to the store and get some honey for my tea.
That was my phone ringing. So goodbye.
Oh, bye bye.